Hello and welcome to Sheba online classes. 10th standard. After the test, we will be resuming regular classes from today's video class. So today we will be taking prose. Lesson is the Attic. 4th unit, prose, the Attic. Who's written by Satyajit Ray. Everybody would have heard about him, no? Satyajit Ray is a author and a filmmaker also. Okay, the characters in this lesson are Satyajit Ray as the narrator. He is narrating the story, and then his friend and business partner Aditya, and Sasanka Sanyal, a childhood friend of this Aditya, and Nagin uncle. He has got a small tea shop in that place there. Okay, now we'll start the story. At first, I will introduce the author, that is Satyajit Ray. He was an Indian filmmaker, screenwriter, graphic artist, music composer and author. He was born in Kolkata. He authored several short stories and novels meant primarily for young children and teenagers. He revived the children's magazine Sandesh, which his grandfather had started in 1913, and edited it until his death in 1992. Ray was more interested in writing rather than filmmaking. His stories have been translated in Europe, the United States and many other countries. Ray received many awards, including 32 National Film Awards by Government of India, notably the Padma Bhushan in 1965 and the highest civilian honor of Bharat Bhushan shortly before his death. So this is the introduction of the author Satyajit Ray. Okay, let's start with the story. Actually, before the story, I would like to say, it's natural for human beings to make mistakes. When we realize a mistake, we should try to rectify it. Okay, so this story is one sample, that is an example for this. Okay, let me start the story. The Attic. Aditya and I were returning from the site of our new factory at Deodarganj. We were driving along National Highway 40. We had reached a point where the road that is separated. If we drove 10 kilometers along the road that branched off to the right, we would reach Baharampur. I asked Aditya, I is Satyajit Ray, that is the author. I asked Aditya whether he was interested in revisiting the place of his birth, which he had left after he had passed the matriculation examination from the local school to continue his studies in Kolkata. When I left our ancestral home, Aditya said, 29 years ago, the house was almost 200 years old, recollected Aditya. I doubt if even the school buildings, which may have undergone many changes, will be recognizable anymore. Trying to revive our old childhood memories may prove disappointing. But he said he wished to visit the tea shop of Nagin uncle, which, if it still existed, and have a cup of tea there. So we took the turning to the right and decided to drive to Baharampur, of which Aditya's ancestors were once the zamindars. Aditya's father had left the ancestral home and moved to Kolkata, where he had set up his own business. After his death, Aditya was looking after it, and I was his friend and business partner. It was the month of Magha, that is January. February by the English calendar, the middle of winter. By my watch, it was 3:30 in the afternoon. The sun was high. On the other side of the road was paddy fields as far as the eye could see. Harvest was over and they had been a good crop that year. After 10 minutes, we came to the local school. Beyond the gates, iron gates, were the playing field and two-storied school building. We got down from the car and stood in front of the gate. I asked Aditya whether everything was still the same. He replied that everything had changed. Our school used to be one-storied and a new building had come up which wasn't there. Were you not a good student? I asked him. Yes, but my position was always second, he replied. We decided to go and have tea at Nagin uncle's tea shop, which stood next to a grocery shop and opposite a temple dedicated to Lord Shiva. Soon we caught sight of Nagin's tea cabin, written on the signboard over the shop. The owner of the tea shop, now over 60, a little rustic in appearance, with his white, neatly combed hair and clean look, was the same as before. He was wearing a dhoti and a blue striped shirt that could be seen from under a green shawl. Not recognizing Aditya, he asked us where we had come from. Deodarganj, replied Aditya. We are on the way to Kolkata. Little surprised, Nagin uncle asked why we were there. To have tea at your shop, said Aditya. Certainly, besides tea, I have biscuits and savouries. Give us 2 nankatai each. We sat on 2 tin chairs. There was only one other customer sitting at a corner table, neither eating nor drinking tea, but sitting with his head bent as though he was sleeping. Addressing him as Mr. Sandyan, Nagin uncle reminded him to go home as it was already 4 p.m. Other customers would soon be coming. Addressing us, he said with a wink in his eye, a little hard of hearing, cannot see well either, but has no money to buy spectacles. From his reactions to his speech, I began to wonder whether Mr. Sanyal was not a little crazy as well, because suddenly he stood up, stretched himself, and raised his lean right arm, and with eyes dilated, began to recite a poem by Tagore. Pandrakha, that is, meaning of the poem is keeping of a promise. Having recited the poem, he left the place, making gesture of namaste with his hands to nobody in particular. I noticed a sudden change in Aditya's expression, and I asked him the reason for it. Without answering, he asked Nagin uncle who the gentleman was and what he did. Nagin uncle replied, Sasanka Sanyal, what can be done? He leads a cursed life, gone crazy, I think, but has not forgotten any incident of the past. Sold his lands to get only daughters married. His only daughter to get married. He sold his land. He lost his wife and only son last year. Since then, he is somewhat changed, not a normal life. Where does he stay? Said Aditya. He stayed with a friend of his father's, Jogesh Kabiraj. Sasanka comes here to have tea and biscuits and always remembers to pay, having an acute sense of self-respect. And how long things will remain like this, I don't know, said Nagin uncle. Having paid our bill and ascertained the location of Jogesh Kabiraj's house, we got into the car. Aditya was at the wheel. He expressed a wish to visit his house. So you do want to see your house after all, I said, because before he didn't want to see this house. But after the story of Sasanka Sanyal, he wanted to go and have a look at his ancestral home. It has become essential to do so, said Aditya. His nerves seemed a little tensed for some reason. We soon reached the house, which was surrounded by high walls. Even from the ruins, one could easily imagine how grand it would have been once upon a time. We entered the building, climbed up the stairs, and reached the attic on the 2nd floor of the house. This was my favorite room, said Aditya. The attic had always been a favorite with children. It is the attic that the children seems to be a world of its own. The portion of the wall of the attic had crumpled down, and through the window that had been created, we could see the sky, the fields, a part of the rice mill, the spire of the old temple. In the whole, the house, the attic had probably been the worst hit by the wind and weather. The floor was strewn with twigs and straw and pigeon droppings. Among other things, there was a broken cricket bat, the remains of an armchair, and a wooden packing case. Aditya got on top of the packing case and pushed his hand inside the ventilator, thus upsetting a sparrow's nest, a part of which fell down to the ground. However, he heaved a sigh of relief when he had got what he had been looking for. When I asked him what it was, he said, "You will get to know very soon." So he didn't reveal what he was doing to Satyajit Ray. We next went to a jeweler's to find out the weight of an article. The jeweler remarked that it was an antique. Our next stop was the house of Jogesh Kaviraj. Though I was a little curious, I didn't ask anything to Aditya. He entered the house and went to the room where Sasanka Sanyal stayed. Sasanka's uncle was busy reciting verses from Tagore. When he had finished, Aditya said, "May we come in?" He turned and faced us. "No one visits me," he said in an unperturbed manner. "Would you mind if we come in?" He said, "Come in. Except for a charpoi." Charpoi means that is the bed. That is the knitted bed, no? There was nothing else to sit on. So we remained standing. "Do you remember Aditya Narayan Chowdhury?" Aditya asked him. "Of course," said the gentleman. The spoiled child of an affluent parents. Affluent means very rich parents. Was a fairly good student but could never beat me. He was extremely jealous of me and he used to tell a lot of lies. "I know," said Aditya. He then took out a packet from his pocket and handing it over to him said, "This is for you from Aditya." "What is it?" he asked. "Money." "Money? How much money?" 150 rupees. He has said that he will be happy if he would accept it. Shall I cry or laugh? Aditya had given me money. Why this sudden generosity? Man does change with time perhaps. Aditya is not the same Aditya as before. A change? I got the prize. He could not bear it. He took it from me to show his father and never returned it to me. Said Sasanka that there was a hole in his pocket and it had fallen through it. This is the price of the medal. It is yours, said Aditya. Sasanka Sanyal was amazed. He stared at Aditya and said, "The price of the medal? That could not be more than 5 rupees. It was just a silver medal. Silver is now 30 times costlier than before," said Aditya. "Really? I have no news of that. But," Sasanka uncle looked at the 10 rupee notes in his hand and then looked at Aditya. There was a completely new expression on his face. He said, "Aditya, this smacks too much of charity, doesn't it?" We remained silent, peering intently at Aditya, Sasanka Sanyal, and smiled and said, "I had recognized you at the Nagin uncle's tea shop by that mole on your right cheek. I could see you had recognized me. So I recited the same poem that had recited on the prize giving day on purpose so that you can remember it. Then when you came to visit me, I couldn't help venting my anger on you. You had done the right thing. Your grievances are absolutely justified. But I will be happy if you accept the money," said Aditya. Sasanka Sanyal shook his head and said, "No money will soon be spent. I would have preferred to have the medal, which, if it were possible, I would have forgotten that unpleasant incident of my childhood if I could get the medal back." So the medal that had been hidden in the attic for 29 years long was eventually restored to its owner. And on the medal, this was described: "Shriman Sasanka Sanyal, special prize for recitation 1948, was still clearly engraved on it." So this is the story of a small story where everybody should learn from it. Like you should not, keeping a promise, if you keep a promise, you have to fulfill it, not to cheat anybody. That's what the story is telling us in the attic. How this Aditya had taken Sasanka Sanyal's medal, and because he was very jealous of Sasanka Sanyal, Aditya was not able to get first place. He was always second. Sasanka Sanyal was always the first in the class, in the school. Any competitions, anything, Sasanka Sanyal was to be always get the first position, and always second position was always got by Aditya. So this made him very jealous, and this jealousy had led him to take the medal and telling that I will show it to my parents, but he did not return it. In purpose only, this is just not that he should not get the medal. Aditya only must, because Aditya was a very rich person's son, and he wants to boast about, "Oh, I have got the medal." That he wants to tell his parents that he won the medal. But so after 29 years, the fate had brought them together, and how he had given the medal back to him. So we should always repent for what we have done. So this is a nice little lesson for every one of you to remember and keep in mind. Okay, hope you like the story. So observation is better when we explain. If you observe the pictures, through a video, we have given you this, made you understand this lesson. Hope you understood this lesson. Thank you.